We're going to take a look at drawing our trivet and designing it in Autodesk Inventor. This is what our drawing looks like. You can also view this as a PDF if you want to have it up at the same time. And if you take a look down here, what we are going to be working on today is we're going to be working on blueprint reading, geometric design and tolerancing, toolpath creation, and preparing it to be laser engraved. You can see that our overall dimension is 7 inches by 7 inches with a total thickness of 3/8 of an inch, 0.375. These slots that are in here are all 0.5 inches from top to bottom, and the distance between the slots are 0.75 inches. To begin, when we're in Inventor, we're going to come up to our top ribbon bar and we're going to select a new. Then we're going to choose standard.ipt and click create. Go up to your top ribbon bar, we're going to select the drawing with the green plus mark, and as always we're going to choose our XY plane to begin drawing on. When it highlights red, click to select it. Click front in your world view cube in order to zoom out. And to begin, we're going to start with our rectangle tool from the top ribbon bar. Bring your cursor to the middle of the screen. Once your cursor dot turns to green, that means you're on the origin. We're going to click and stretch out a rectangle to the upper right hand quadrant. We're going to enter in our first dimension of 7. Press the tab key. Our second dimension for vertical height is 7, and press enter on the keyboard. Click front in your world view cube to zoom all and see what you have. Now we're going to go up to the top ribbon bar. We're going to green check mark, finish sketch. Click home in your world view cube to zoom all. To give our part thickness, we're going to come up to our ribbon bar and we're going to click extrude. Remember, we want this to go in the direction that's not coming to us. We're going to flip it, the second button in, and we're going to enter in our distance here for how thick that material is. And that material is 0.375, 3/8 of an inch. Once you have those entered in, click OK. Then we're going to start and begin drawing those slots on there. We're going to get a 2D sketch from our ribbon bar at the top. Place it on your front view of your drawing. And click front in your world view cube, or you could click on magnifying glass piece of paper here in order to zoom all. Now, this is going to be a little messy with our rectangle, so I'm going to organize my dimensions pretty nicely in here for you. To start, we're going to go up to the top, get our rectangle tool, and I'm going to stretch out a rectangle. The first distance for this rectangle is 5.5 for the horizontal dimension. Press the tab key, and my thickness for this rectangle is 0.5. Press enter on the keyboard. Now, I'm going to organize these dimensions a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing with the other ones. So usually I don't put them outside, inside the geometry. I always want to leave them outside, but this is going to get kind of cluttered up if I don't do this for you. Next, I need to dimension the location of this rectangle. So I'm going to get my dimension tool, and I'm going to click the bottom of my part and the bottom of the rectangle that I just drew. Bring this dimension out to the side, and this dimension is 0.75. Press enter on the keyboard or the green check mark. Now this dimension moves the rectangle 0.75 inches up from the bottom. Next, I need to tell it how far in from the side is it. So with my dimension tool, I'm going to click the left-hand side of my part and the left-hand side of my rectangle. Bring this dimension down, and this dimension is 0.75, 3/4 of an inch, green check mark. Okay. Next, I'm going to go and I'm going to get my next rectangle on there. Get my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw another rectangle. This rectangle's dimension is 5.5. Press the tab key and 0.5 for the height. Press enter on the keyboard. Next, we have to dimension this and place it onto the part. So we're going to get our dimension tool. Now before I do that, once again, I'm going to move my dimensions inside the part. You can leave yours where they are, although it does look a little cluttered when you're doing that. So to dimension the location of this rectangle, I'm going to dimension from the top of my first rectangle to the bottom of this second rectangle. Bring this dimension out to the side, and this dimension is 0.75. There's all spaced 3/4 of an inch apart. And I am going to take and dimension from the left-hand side of this rectangle to the left-hand side of my part. This dimension is 0.75. Green check mark. Now we're moving on to the two small rectangles, these that are right here. You can see that this rectangle is 1.75 and the thickness is still 0.5. Going back to my part drawing, I'm going to choose my rectangle tool from the top ribbon bar. I'm going to stretch out a rectangle. My horizontal dimension was 1.75. Press the tab key. My vertical dimension is 0.5. Press enter on the keyboard. Once again, I push the escape key. I'm going to move my dimensions inside that geometry so it doesn't look so cluttered as I'm positioning it. Then I'm going to dimension from the bottom of my rectangle to the top of that second rectangle that I do, so I get a spacing in between these of 0.75. Okay, now I need to dimension how far it is to the outside edge. So I'm going to dimension from the left-hand side of my rectangle to the left-hand side of my part. And this dimension here is 0.75. Green check. Rectangle tool once again for the other narrow one that's over on the other side. Stretch out the rectangle over here, and I'm going to type in 1.75 for the width. Press tab key, 0.75 for the height. Enter on the keyboard. Made a wrong dimension here. In order to change it, I'm going to click on it. Double click on that dimension. It brings up the edit dimension box, and this dimension is supposed to be 0.5 for the rectangle height. Green check mark, and then changes it to the right size. Once again, I'm going to move my dimension into the geometry so it doesn't look so cluttered. And then I'm going to dimension from the top of this rectangle to the bottom of the rectangle that I just created. And this dimension here is 0.75. Green check mark. I also have to locate this slot or this rectangle from the left-hand side and position it correctly. So I'm going to click the rectangle tool from the left-hand side of my part to the left-hand side of my rectangle. When the line highlights red, click to select it. This dimension here needs to be 4.5. Green check mark or enter on the keyboard. Now we have two more long narrow rectangles up here. I'm going to continue placing those on. Rectangle tool. Click my rectangle, stretch it out. 5.5 for that dimension. Press tab on the keyboard or toggle to the other box. 0.5 is my rectangle height. Enter on the keyboard. I'm going to dimension for the location of this. Once again, bottom of the rectangle to the top of this third rectangle. Bring this dimension out. The spacing in between is 0.75. I also want to position it from the left-hand side of the part to the left-hand side of the rectangle. And this dimension is 0.75. To make things easier again, I'm going to move my dimensions inside the box so it doesn't look so cluttered on the screen. Then I'm on to my last rectangle. I'm going to use my rectangle tool. Stretch out a rectangle. This rectangle is 5.5. Press the tab key. 0.5 for the rectangle height. Press enter on the keyboard. I'm going to move these dimensions inside my part so it's a little easier to see. Then I'm going to dimension from the bottom of this rectangle to the top of the rectangle below it. Bring this dimension out to the side. Space in between each one of these is 0.75. You see how I'm keeping them all on the same side of the drawing. Dimension from the left-hand side of the part to the left-hand side of this rectangle. And this is also 0.75. Green check mark. Great job with drawing those rectangles. Next, we're going to take green check mark, finish sketch, and we're going to give those rectangles depth. So we're going to click on extrude in our ribbon bar at the top. And I'm going to bring my mouse over and I'm going to click each one of these rectangles to identify it that it needs to be extruded. Okay, now you can see that they're coming out towards us, so I want to flip that to make sure that they're going the other way. Or if I wanted to, I can come down here and choose the cut command. And I'm going to highlight my distance, and I'm going to change that depth to 0.188, which is 3/16 of an inch, and click OK. Okay, if this problem shows up where it says create extruded feature, you're going to press edit. And the problem that I have is I have a cut feature, but I have it coming out towards me. So I want to change it to the flip direction. And then when I click OK, it's going to accept it. Okay, so if that happens to you, now you know how to fix it. So we're going to cut this from the front side, and then we're going to turn it over and cut it from the back side, and that's going to have our milled out in it. The next thing I want to do is I want to place my fillets in here. So I'm going to open up my drawing, take a look at my fillets. Now down here in the note, you can see that all fillets are 0.0125 unless otherwise specified. However, these corner fillets that are on the outside corners are a radius of 0.5. So we're going to take a look at creating all of these. Going back to my drawing, I'm going to get my fillet tool from the top ribbon bar, click on fillet. Default, it should come in as 0.125 for the radius. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to select all my inside fillets. It's going to take a little while to get these all clicked and selected. I'm going to use my cube in order to rotate around. So I'm now going to click my bottom part of this cube. That's going to change it so I can see my other ones. Zoom back in. And I just want that vertical line inside of all of these openings. If you're pretty good, you can highlight over your part and you can see how I can select that hidden one as well if you're zoomed in on it well enough. If not, a good solution is go to your World View Cube, click on the opposite corner, and then zoom in, and then you should be able to find those edges in order to highlight as well. And then you'll just have to flip it again to the bottom corner, zoom back in, and then you should be able to find the top edges. If you miss some, it's not a big deal to go back and select those. Once you have all those corners selected, you can see that they're all highlighted in blue. I'm going to click apply. Then with my fillet menu still open, I'm going to change my radius to 0.5. And I'm going to select all my outside corners. This one here, you can find that hidden back there, or you can change this and flip it around in your World View Cube to select that opposite corner. Oops, I got the wrong edge. Cancel. Not too hard to cancel it and come back in, fillet. 0.5 is my radius. I'll come in, click my outside corners. And that puts that 1/2 inch fillet on the outside. Click apply, click cancel. Great job on creating your part for the trivet. The next video is going to be how to run the tool paths. In order to save this, we're going to come up to the top, go to File above our ribbon, the orange file in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to go down to Save As. We're going to make sure that this is going into our H drive, first initial last name 000. If it's not, you want to click on the pull-down menu and go down to your H drive, first initial last name 000 should be the bottom of the list. Once you have that selected, we're going to change the file name to Trivet and then enter your last name. So Trivet and your last name and click Save. Congratulations. The next video is going to show you how to run the tool parts or tool paths.